In 1938, the Calfee Training School, the segregated school for black students in the small town of Pulaski, Virginia, burned down.
Well, the biggest thing I can remember about is our school caught fire and burned that year that I went to Calfee. I went to Dublin Elementary School, 1st through the 7th grade. And that's all that they had to offer blacks in the town anywhere in the county, except Calfee Training School. And Calfee Training School then went to the 9th grade. I started attending that. They made no transportation for me to get there. My father had a little business. He could take me winter days. Otherwise, I rode the Greyhound bus from Dublin to Pulaski, get off downtown and walk up to Calfee Training School. And either it was Saturday night or Sunday night, Calfee School caught on fire and burned. And so then that left us without a school. And they started we met in churches, any homes big enough to take us, and we went all over town of Pulaski to go to school. The following year is when they started transporting us to Christiansburg Industrial Institute.
But the year leading up to the 1938 fire was eventful as well. Percy C. Corbin, a respected black citizen of Pulaski, sought improvements for black students in an accredited high school. In order to offer 4 years of high school, the school board needed another teacher. It hired Chauncey D. Harmon, who had returned to Pulaski 3 years earlier after graduating from the Tuskegee Institute. Chauncey Harmon had met Thurgood Marshall, who would later become the Supreme Court's first African-American justice. Harmon, with the NAACP and the Virginia Teachers Association, mounted a campaign to equalize salaries for black teachers with white teachers. Black citizens of Pulaski County hoped for high-quality schools for their children. The idea of desegregated public schools was still on the horizon because school segregation was the law in Virginia. And in the late 1930s, there was nothing equal about Virginia schools. 27% of Virginia's school children were black, but they received far less support for their education than white students. On Friday, November 11, 1938, the Calfee Training School burned down. It is reported in the Southwest Times newspaper as an exciting spectacle rather than a tragedy for the black students who would have nowhere to go to school. The cause of the fire has never been determined. Percy Corbin blamed the dilapidated conditions of the building as the cause. Thus, the long campaign to equalize school facilities began. Many people worked together to fight for equal salaries and school facilities, but it was a difficult fight. The Pulaski County School Board did rebuild the Calfee Training School at a cost of $35,000. At the same time, they added a new gym and other facilities to Pulaski High School, the white school, for $48,000. In March of 1939, Pulaski County solved the demand for a high school for black students by sending its black students to the Christiansburg Industrial Institute. This effectively eliminated the job of Chauncey Harmon, who was the principal. Chauncey Harmon and Willis Gravely were fired from their positions at Calfee. It was a dangerous time for black people who wanted to change the status quo.
But the fact that they agreed to be part of a lawsuit This is in 1930s, 38, 39, to sue the school system in a white southern state where you could get lynched. That they're heroes, and people need to know that story. That they put it on the line, and the two male teachers on the Calfee staff, Mr. Harmon and Mr. Gravely, lost their jobs and things. But it could have been even more than that, because one of the husbands of one of the teachers at Calfee, Kathleen Santa Cruz, her husband, Dr. Santa Cruz, he was murdered out on the streets of Pulaski. He came out of his office building, and some white guys were messing with some black girls. He came to their defense to break it up, and he went across the street to a payphone to call the police about him, and they followed and they struck him in the back of the head, and he actually died from the blow. And so, I mean, that was the times and things, but these teachers, like I said, they stood their ground and did that.
Several years passed, and in 1947, Percy Corbin sued the Pulaski County School Board on behalf of his son, Mahatma, who rode the bus from Pulaski to Christiansburg each day to attend high school. This case became part of a movement of local class action lawsuits orchestrated by Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. African-American attorneys Oliver Hill and Spotswood Robinson brought suit and argued the case. This case hinged on a section of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. More specifically, the Equal Protection Clause, which states, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." The question was, what does equal protection of the laws mean when it comes to segregated schools? The plaintiffs argued that the Pulaski County School Board discriminated against them in 4 areas. 1, they did not provide facilities for the elementary education of black students equal with white students. 2, they failed to provide equal transportation. 3, they failed to enforce compulsory school attendance law equally. And 4, they failed to provide high school facilities for black students equal to whites. The case was presided over by Judge Alfred D. Barksdale.
The question for determination here is the factual one of whether or not the policies, usages, and customs of the defendants, Pulaski County Schools, actually do discriminate against these plaintiffs and others similarly situated on account of their race or color.
Judge Barksdale does not find merit to any of the 4 claims. In his ruling, he writes that the Calfee Training School is modern and adequate and is entirely comparable to any elementary school in the county. He also notes,
the inadequacy of many of the elementary schools for white children is shocking. Public free schools cannot be brought to every man's door. They must be located where they can do the greatest good for the greatest number. Travel to and from school of necessity must vary.
He specifically mentions the Christiansburg Institute, noting that it was fully accredited by the Southern Association, one of only 61 such schools of the 548 Virginia high schools bearing such a distinction. He argues finally that if each county must provide its own black high school, that the quality of these will be lower than the quality of the consolidated schools such as the Christiansburg Institute.
On the whole case, I find that no discrimination against these plaintiffs or others similarly situated on account of their race exists.
Just a few months later, in October of 1949, the case was appealed before the Fourth Circuit United States Court of Appeals. 3 judges heard the case, again argued by the attorneys Oliver Hill and Spotswood Robinson. While not disagreeing with the entirety of the lower court's ruling, the judges saw a glaring problem. Judge Barksdale had ignored the other black elementary schools in the county, focusing on the one of better quality, Calfee Training School. Chief Justice John Parker took issue with the idea that since poor quality schools for whites also existed in Pulaski County, that all was fair.
The question cannot be decided by averaging the facilities provided for the two classes of people throughout the county and comparing one with the other, since the rights created by the 14th Amendment are individual and personal.
The judges also observed the specific and obvious differences in the gyms, libraries, and summer courses offered for white students at Pulaski High School and black students attending the Christiansburg Institute. The judges conclude that discrimination did exist.
When the picture before us is viewed as a whole, we are led to the conclusion that there is a rather glaring inequity when the facilities for white and black students of Pulaski are compared, and it can hardly be denied that this discrimination is due to race and color.
Shortly after this case, the NAACP began pursuing cases intended to end segregated schools entirely. The case of Corbin v. Pulaski School Board ended up being one of only 6 successful cases led by the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund that paved the way for the groundbreaking Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. The Pulaski County public school system was fully desegregated in 1966. Today, the Calfee Training School in Pulaski County is being renovated into a community center and museum.